Do you make choices out of your own free will? The answer to this question might feel obvious to some. Of course, how else would you make choices if not out of your own free will? Today you chose to get out of bed. You chose whether or not to have breakfast. You chose to click on this video. Unless someone puts a gun to your head and tells you what to do, the decisions you make are always a consequence of your own free will. Right? Well, if you spend time amongst people who enjoy discussing these kinds of things, or if you've just been around the sun a few times, you might have come across the argument that free will is nothing more than an illusion. That you, in fact, have no control whatsoever over your actions. The argument goes something like this. Everything in the universe abides by the laws of physics. You exist in the universe. Therefore, you also abide by the laws of physics. The laws of physics are deterministic. Since you and your actions are governed by the laws of physics, your actions are deterministic. Therefore, you have no free will. Upon hearing this, one might say, well, what if I do something really wacky and unpredictable, like wave my arms around, jump and recite Plato's allegory of the cave at the same time? Surely that can't be predicted. Unfortunately, this action would be just as predictable and, according to this view, as non-free as any other action you supposedly chose to make. It would be a perfectly logical response to the confused and provoked state of being where one finds oneself when trying to express agency in an agency-free world. This realization is often a horrible one, and comes with a heap of unpleasant emotions and internal conflict. Can it be that we completely lack agency, despite us so deeply feeling that we are decision-making creatures? What remains of our personalities, and indeed our very essence, if our entire lives are completely decided by those simple rules we all learn in school in our early teens? This view of free will as an illusion is fairly common and can be a contributing factor when people fall into states of nihilism and despair. However, there is an argument to be made for why this view of free will is not only wrong, but even nonsensical. When we move through life and make decisions, it certainly feels as if those decisions are made by our own free will. Just how free we feel in any given moment may vary. Perhaps we feel a greater degree of freedom doing things like hiking, spending time with loved ones, or losing ourselves in a good book, and a lesser degree of freedom when we are forced to go to work on a Monday morning. Nevertheless, the act of going to work is still rooted in a personal desire to make money, maybe so you can sustain your family, or perhaps to afford that hobby you enjoy so much. Even if one is threatened at gunpoint to perform a certain task, one's compliance would be a result of the personal desire to continue on living. The assumption that everything is the way it is in the universe because of the starting conditions of the Big Bang and the laws of physics implies that not only your actions, but also that your desires, goals, and values are predetermined. This all seems to indicate that with the laws of physics as an engine, predetermined desires cause predetermined actions. If one then were to do the impossible and go against the laws of physics to commit a truly free action, this action would automatically go against said person's desires, goals, and values. Consider a person, let's call her Annie, winning the lottery. This newfound wealth presents Annie with many different options. She could give it all away to charity, she could put it all in the bank and never spend it, or perhaps she could throw a big expensive party for all her friends to attend. The point here is that there are many potential choices Annie may make, but in the end she will make up her mind and use the money to do some specific thing or things. In this case, after contemplating what to do, Annie decided to give the money to charity. She probably considered many options in the decision-making process, but in the end, giving it all away was the thing she was most comfortable with. Unbeknownst to Annie, this option might, however, have been predetermined, as had the characteristics making her a nice and caring person. Now consider what would happen if Annie were to do the impossible, breaking the laws of physics in an attempt to express independent agency. She would then have to pick another option, forcing her to do something other than the thing she preferred when contemplating her options. If free will indeed means going against the laws of physics, it also means never acting upon your own will. Using agency to actively go against one's own will seems like a rather silly expression of free will. Perhaps our free will isn't at all limited by the fact that the universe is governed by laws. Perhaps the real inhibitors of our free will are the things we are more familiar with, like poverty, addiction, disease, or even more mundane things, like laziness, lack of introspection, or freezing like a deer in the headlights when confronted with the seemingly infinite amount of choices presented to us by existence. Perhaps we ought to spend less time contemplating if we have a free will, and spend more time figuring out how to use it.